All right, so today we are talking with Christina Welsh. Christina, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm happy to be here, guys.
So you just ran a blazing 2:33 at the Houston Marathon, which is so fast and crazy in itself. But what's even crazier is your marathon progression.
But wait, should we get into a little bit of background before
let's
we get
do it.
there? All right. So Christina, you're from Hamilton, New Jersey, right?
Yes.
It seems like a ton of good runners come from New Jersey, including our own Brandon here at the office. But like you think about, there's a lot of fast people in New Jersey for some reason.
Yeah, I wasn't very fast when I lived in New Jersey, actually. I live in Florida now.
You got faster in Florida?
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so tell us, what are you doing in Florida and how did you end up there?
I moved here in 2019 to do a PhD program in marine biology. So I'm working on that now. I'm about halfway done.
Florida's probably a great place to do that just because you have an ocean near you.
Yeah, and I live right on the Gulf Coast, so great location for it.
That's awesome. Have you always been like one of those kids that was really into animals and all that stuff, and this is just a natural progression?
Yeah, well, I didn't know much about science when I was younger, but I had a lot of fish tanks, so I guess that kind of counts.
In-house biology there.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit about your running journey itself. Like, when did you first start running? When did you have success? Yeah, were you young, and when did you get into it?
So I started running kind of just for fun when I was in high school, and I didn't join the track team and start actually competing until spring of my junior year of high school. And the team we didn't have like a really big distance team. It wasn't super competitive, so it was still kind of just like for fun. And then in college, I ran Division III at Stockton University. And even then, like, the 5K, 10K like you run in college wasn't really a good event for me, really. It doesn't really play to my talents. So even then, like, I wasn't super competitive or anything. And then I really got more into running after I graduated because I went right into marathons and started training for those. That's what I'm doing now.
So you said the 5K wasn't really your area of talent. Where do you feel your area of talent is?
Definitely in the longer distances. Like, even the half marathon feels short for me. And even if you look at all my PRs, like, my marathon is by far better than just any other event. Like, I'm so bad at any kind of speed work at all.
So did you just love running? It doesn't sound like, you were having these fantastic performances in school, but you continued with it. So is this just like a passion of yours and you just enjoyed running?
Yeah, I really just love running, and like the day-to-day of training is really what I'm here for. Even racing, like even now, kind of stresses me out. It's not my favorite part of the whole entire training process. I really much prefer just like the workouts and like the build and everything.
And you like high mileage, right?
I do, yes.
After you graduated
definitely.
college is when you decided to run your first marathon, yes?
So I graduated in 2018, and then I ran my first marathon a year later in June 2019.
And what made you want to do that?
I don't know. I don't really have a good reason for why. I just always, even when I was younger, like when I first started college, just had it in my head that like one day I would be a marathoner.
Okay, so you run your first marathon in 2019. You run a 3:29. This is the Lake Placid Marathon. What were your thoughts? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Tell us all about it.
I did have fun. It was great. I finished it and immediately wanted to sign up for another marathon. I did not prepare for it very well at all. I had no idea what I was doing. At the time, I didn't even really know any other marathoners, so I had no one giving me advice. I walked a lot in the last couple miles. It was kind of a disaster, but
That's
it was
amazing.
still
You
a
walked
good
and got a 3:29? That's pretty good.
Well, I went on way too fast. When you go out way too fast, you can do a lot of walking in the end.
So what was your training? I mean, so you're not working with a coach at this point. You're just sort of going out there and winging it?
Yeah. So going into that one, and my second marathon too, was the same. I didn't have a coach. I was kind of running maybe like 60-ish miles a week. And I wasn't really doing workouts, and I really had no plan at all. I was just doing random running every single day. So yeah, it was kind of just aimless. I don't know.
So you had no goals heading into this. You weren't like, I want to qualify for Boston on your first marathon. You were just like, I'm going to go out and run.
So I kind of had it in my head that I wanted to qualify for Boston. And then I ran a 3:29, and then I got rejected from the Boston Marathon. I had applied for 2020, and they said, no, you're too slow.
Oh,
How you must have been really close to the cutoff.
So I was below the cutoff. It was like 3:30, but then you had to run a 3:25 to actually get in that year.
and then you went and reloaded to New York, and you dropped 10 minutes off your time, basically, down to 3:20, and you're still not doing coaching. You're still not doing plans. You're kind of winging it still?
Yeah. So that one was pretty comparable to the first one in that I just went out way too fast and had no idea what I was doing and then walked a bunch at the end. But I think I started walking slightly later into the race, and so that was how I cut off that 10 minutes.
I feel like if you're walking, especially knowing you're going out pretty fast and then you're walking at the end of these marathons, like you're in pain, you're uncomfortable at this point if you're walking. What is bringing you back to these marathons?
I don't know. I mean, even if you do a good job, the end of a marathon kind of hurts. So
That's the
you
truth.
just see how it goes. Mile 26 never feels that good, but then you forget about it a couple days later.
So how are you picking your marathons at this point? So Lake Placid, obviously you're in Florida for school. You're picking Lake Placid, which is it's supposed to be a pretty tough course, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a stupid choice. I don't know why I picked it. That definitely was, I didn't know what I was doing when I picked it. It had so I was still living in New Jersey when I ran Lake Placid. So I drove. I think that was the only reason I picked it, was because it was the only marathon that you could drive to in June. And it was so hilly. It had 2,400 feet of gain, and the part of New Jersey I lived in was completely flat, so I did absolutely no hills going into it. I didn't know what gels were at the time. I don't think I took any gels the entire race because I didn't know that they existed. It was just a mess. So there was no actual thought that went into any of my decisions for those early marathons.
Were you just going off a Gatorade then, or whatever they had at the water stops?
Yeah, I think they were giving out Gatorade, and I think I might have had one gel that they gave out somewhere on the course, but I had never had one before, so I don't think I took the whole thing and didn't know what to do with it.
So you run that 3:20 at New York City. You definitely qualify for Boston because that gives you a 10-minute buffer. What happens after that? Because it takes you a full year before you reload. Were you like, I'm going to take a break from these marathons?
No, COVID happened.
Oh.
I was signed up for a marathon.
COVID. That thing.
Yeah.
I was signed up for several marathons in 2020, that I tried to go to, and they all got canceled.
So the Space Coast Marathon finally happens in November of 2020, and you drop another 17 minutes off your time, almost 3 hours. What did you do between the New York and the Space Coast Marathon?
So with that one, I did have a training group that I was training with. So it wasn't quite as intense as my current or my coaching after that was, but going into that one, I was at least around other marathoners who could give me some guidance and kind of tell me what to do. I was doing workouts with other people for a little while, in a group. So it was just slightly more direction. It still wasn't a super individualized, clear training plan, but it was better than just going out and doing random mileage. I just felt like.
And did you focus on nutrition at all at this point? Because I feel like running a 3-hour marathon, you got to be taking something out there on the course.
Yeah, so I kind of started to figure it out. I think I took 2 gels during that marathon, so it was better, but it still wasn't perfect by any means. I still didn't know at that point many other people who were really into marathoning, so I still didn't I just didn't have a lot of people giving me advice.
That's interesting. Do you think that's was it an age thing, or where you are in going after your higher education, that you're just around academics more than athletes? Like, what do you think it was that you weren't finding that? Because I would think like most of the time when people get down to low threes and they start thinking about sub 3 marathon, they start attracting people that are also similar goals that want the same stuff. So you start getting like more input and training. And you weren't getting that. What do you think? Why weren't those people? Why weren't you drawing that into your training?
Well, I had a lot of friends who ran, who I would like run with sometimes, but no one who I guess was like taking it as seriously as I was at the time. And I had a lot of friends at the time who were older who like had run fast times and like had trained really seriously when they were younger, but were now like maybe in their like 50s or 60s. That was kind of like the general makeup of the running group I was in at the time. So yeah, it was improving, but I still hadn't attracted too many other like people my age who were trying to do the same thing. But that started to happen more like after Space Coast. I think locally people kind of noticed me a little bit after that.
And people are following along. What you're going to notice here is that the times keep dropping by about 10 minutes per marathon, which is kind of insane. Just that kind of progression. And it just keeps going.
Yeah, I feel like, well, at least from personal experience, I'll have a good marathon and then a not so great marathon. And there's not this like beautiful trajectory of getting faster and getting faster and getting faster. But you've run 6 marathons since 2019 and every single one got faster.
Yeah, well, when you start off as rough as I started off, it's not that hard to get faster afterwards.
So after you run that 3:03, was your immediate goal like I have to go sub 3, or was your goal going into Space Coast to go sub 3?
I had no goals going into Space Coast. Honestly, I didn't even sign up for it until like 3 weeks before the race because I was supposed to do some other race that was like a couple months after, and then it got canceled for COVID. So I just found Space Coast and it was kind of close by and it was definitely going to happen. And like I said, like I hadn't raced in a year because everything had been canceled. So I was like, I'm just gonna do this because it's an actual opportunity, which I haven't had for a while.
I find this also interesting because I feel like most runners we talk to are so like A personalities and everything has to be structured and I need to make sure I'm doing this, this, and this. And you seem like you're totally fine just saying, I'll just see what I can do and I have no real plan. Is that how you are? Is that how you've always been with everything in life?
I think I've gotten better about it since I've gotten older, especially with running. And like I do still like to have some semblance of a plan in my training. Like I definitely like to know like what kind of mileage I'm going to be doing or like what the workouts are going to be. But I try not to be too picky about like paces and like hitting splits and figuring that kind of stuff out ahead of time. Because I feel like there's just so much that can factor into it. It's just not.
I think that's it. I think it's zen, and I wish I could be like that. Like, hey, let's just see how it feels today. We'll go out. I'm hitting my paces. Oh, look at this. I'm dropping 10 minutes off my marathon. Like, that'd be amazing. I'm going to have to, if you write a book on that, I'll read it. But, yeah. So let's continue on because, like, I want to know, like Megan said, so obviously you're not like, well, I want to go sub 3, but you're like, I want to perform well and I want to have a good run, Space Coast. But you are right there knocking at the door of sub 3, which is a lot of amateur runners. Sub 3 is really a huge goal for a lot of people. So does it enter your mind now when you're going into the Wilmington Marathon that like, hey, I have a chance to go sub 3, which is pretty strong?
So going into Wilmington, my goal I think was to run like around a 250. I can't really remember exactly, but So that was a really bad race for me. Like, regardless of time, like, the execution of the race was not good. Like, I felt really bad really early on, had some real slow miles in the middle. It was rough. Like, I thought I was going to die at the finish line of that race. So it was right after that I switched my coach, and then got a new coach that was more of an individualized training plan, more of like a, just like what I guess you would expect nowadays, like for people to have. Like, he was the one who really taught me how to, like, how many gels you were supposed to take. Like, I had no idea how many they were supposed to take them, like every 4 miles or whatever. He taught me about, like, I didn't know you were supposed to have different shoes for all your different runs. Like, I was wearing the same pair of shoes for every single run.
Wait a second. So what shoes were you wearing for the first 3 marathons? I'm
pretty sure. And now I work at a running store, so, like, I actually know about shoes now. So looking back on this was so stupid. I'm pretty sure I wore Saucony Freedoms for my first marathon. I know.
Yeah, not the lightest, and also a little bit bottom heavy, but yeah.
Yeah, literally the worst possible choice. I don't know why I did that.
That's amazing. So you're doing all your training runs in it. All your mileage is in that one shoe then? Like, you're running your morning runs and then your speed work, or if you did speed work, and then to the races, same shoe.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. I don't know why I was doing that. I don't know why it didn't occur to me that was obviously wrong, but I didn't know. So it was after Wilmington that I really switched things up and, like, figured out all those little details like that. So that was, like, to me, I think of it as my first 2 marathons, I was doing one thing, and then my second 2 marathons, I was kind of, like, in between, and then, like, my most recent 2, I was, like, actually trying.
Here's where it gets really exciting. Like, I think for most people, like we're saying, a lot of amateur athletes, breaking 3 is, like, the super goal. And then starting to get curious of where you can go with it, and you switch coach. Obviously, you got a good pair of shoes now. What did you run Houston in? Did you run those in Alpha Flies or Vapor Flies or something else?
Yeah, I had Vapor Flies for Houston.
Okay. So you get some light shoes with some cushioning. Legs are probably feeling better in the final miles. And you're dropping it. And Grandma's Marathon, you ended up meeting a friend of ours, I think.
Yeah, actually, Christina, I meant to mention this in the beginning, but I reached out partially because our friend Ben Johnson ran Grandma's Marathon, and I think he ran a lot of it either. I'm not sure if you guys were in a pack or.
Yeah, I met him there. It was just, I wasn't even really a pack. It was just me and him for, like, a long stretch of it. And I didn't know who he was before that, and all these people were, like, waving and saying hi, and I was like, wow, this guy has so many friends. And then after, I figured out who it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he is actually the one who brought you to my attention, because he was like, we ran together in Grandma's, and she just ran a 2:33, like dropped another insane time.
So we just skipped over that Grandma's, she ran a 2:44, so another 10 minutes off, or more than 10 minutes off.
But what's the craziest about this is you run Wilmington in April, and then 2 months later you run Grandma's and drop a significant amount of time off of your marathon.
12 minutes.
Yeah, I don't even know how that happened. People always ask me about that one in particular, because they were only 7 weeks apart, and I have absolutely no idea how that happened.
Because at this point,
it's new shoes.
Have you already switched coaches? Like, when did you make the switch? Was it after Wilmington or before?
It was literally like an hour after Wilmington. It was like on the plane home. So the coach that I switched to is a guy who I, like, sort of knew a little bit, and he had offered to coach me in the past, and I had always said no. And then after Wilmington, like, literally on the plane home, I messaged him and was like, okay, I would like you to be my coach now. And I signed up for Grandma's, like, on the plane.
Why had he reached out to you in the first place?
I think he saw my result from Space Coast, and then he, like, found me on Strava and saw my Strava and was like, I think I can make your training better than it is now. Like, you have more potential than you're using right.
So what changed with your training when you switched coaches? Like, was it drastic or was it just some small things?
Maybe a little bit. So I had been running maybe like 100 miles a week up until Wilmington. But I was doing like 3 workouts a week, and I was doing kind of a lot of speed work, which, like I said, is not really my specialty. So when I switched coaches, I think the biggest change that he made in my training was that the volume increased a lot. So I was running like well over 100 after that, and then the intensity of the workouts went down. Like, I kind of entirely stopped doing speed work. It was mostly like tempo paced runs, and it was just more about like getting in like volume and like aerobic training over like quick speed stuff.
So when you say tempo training, so like in a typical long run or something, you're putting in high mileage in the week. Are you just setting aside blocks to practice marathon pace?
Yeah, so recently, like up until Houston, my typical training week would be like during the week, I would do kind of a threshold pace workout, so like a little bit faster, but still not super, not like a 5K workout or anything like that. And then on the weekend, I would do like a longer one that would have some marathon paced effort in it. And that was about it for workouts. And honestly, I almost never actually hit the goal paces. I was like way below for all of them, or way slower for all of them.
I think this podcast is going to give a lot of people hope.
Yeah, so like even going into Houston, the pace I ran my last 10K at in Houston, I didn't touch that pace one time during the entire build.
Oh, wow.
Like, I don't even know how that happened.
I have to say, I stalked you on Strava a little bit, and I pulled up your Houston Marathon, and it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Like, your splits are so consistent and then get slightly faster and then even faster towards the end. And I'm like, that is the most amazing looking marathon I've ever seen.
But let's talk about this for a second, because it sounds like her first 2 marathons were the exact opposite.
Yes.
They were. If I was on Strava back then, it would be like you flipped that Strava map over.
Yeah. So it's all came down to, you think, these workouts, but like, I think the hardest thing is for people to believe that they can hit certain paces and feel those paces. What is it when you're running Houston? Because you ran a 2:33 in Houston, which is exceptional. You know, that's really getting up there close to that
Pro level.
Yeah, pro level. That in 6 marathons, you got yourself in a really good. And if you keep the trajectory keeps going, you're going to beat Kipchoge in about 4 marathons. But you know, what is it about when you're running out there, that feeling that you had in Houston, where you're like, I can put the gas on?
So like I said, I don't really like to focus too much on like splits and stuff. Like I did wear my watch and everything, and like I was looking at the miles as they were going by, but I really didn't have a great concept of what pace I was running. Like, I had absolutely no idea that I was on 2:33 pace, like, until the moment I saw the clock. Like, I didn't know. So I wouldn't really call it confidence. I would just say I just didn't.
Oblivious.
I just didn't know what was happening.
But no, what I mean is, you know, when you're pushing the pace, and like, I think there's a internal speedometer that goes, you back off because I can't hold this much faster. You're clearly not getting to that point in the Houston Marathon where you're like, I better slow down because otherwise your splits would be going the other way. Yours seems to get more excited as you're running. That feeling like to accelerate or to push it a little bit further, was that just based on, hey, I'm at this mile and I want to get done?
So I think one thing is I do a lot of volume in my training. Like, I went up to like 135 miles a week during that training block. So like, even at mile 20 or 20, like towards the end, I never really get like intimidated by the distance of the marathon. Like, it never really feels like that far, just because I'm just so used to the high volume. But So another thing is, like, I like to do all my workouts kind of off feel a little bit more. And I think part of that has to do with living and training in Florida, because it's, like, now it's kind of cold, but for the most of the year, like 10 months out of the year, it's so hot and humid and like tropical conditions here. So you can't really put too much thought into the workout splits. Um, just because there's no way to run all your training runs in 90 degrees and humidity and then somehow convert that into what your race pace should be at like 45 degrees.
Yeah, we definitely know that. We when we were down in Florida, we had to do a 20-mile training run, and it was, I would have thought my marathon's gonna die if this is the best I can do. It was one of those runs where you just dragging it out. I even stopped at like one of those like gas station convenience stores because I was like so dehydrated by the end of that run. It was just miserable. So I don't know how you Florida people do it.
Yeah, you can get used to anything if you do it long enough.
I guess so.
Okay, I want to back up a little bit here. So 135 miles a week is crazy. Like, that's a lot of mileage. That's high mileage for the pros. Like, did you just feel fine? Were you doing 2-a-days? Like, how did you split it up?
Yeah, how do you get in 135 miles during the week?
So I built up to that, and I only did it for 2 weeks at 135. So it wasn't that crazy, but I was doubling 5 days a week. So I had 5 easy days a week, and they would be like a longer run in the morning and then a 4-mile double in the afternoon. And then I would have a midweek workout that would be like 18-ish miles, and then I'd have a long run on the weekend. So that was like how my weeks were all structured.
How long were your long runs? Did you go over 26?
My longest one was 26 miles.
Okay.
Did you ask if anybody had a medal handy when you finished?
Man, I was dying that day. So it was a depletion run. Do you guys ever do depletion runs? They're terrible.
No.
So I just finished it and thought I could pass out.
Describe a depletion run.
You don't take any nutrition, right?
Yeah, you just don't take any nutrition the whole time. And it was like unseasonably hot. It was like December in Florida is normally like kind of chilly, but it was like 70-something degrees that day.
So no water either?
I think I stopped for water. Sometimes I don't stop for water on those, but that time I did because it was like really hot. And it was just terrible. And I just thought I was going to die. So I wasn't thinking about anything at the end of the run.
So Houston felt great.
Yeah, Houston was awesome compared to that.
Yeah, I feel like that must have played a factor when you're used to training in these hot and humid conditions, and then you go to Houston, and it was probably actually pretty cold for you. I think it was 30s.
Yeah, it was freezing. It was like in the 30s, but then it was like a 15-mile-per-hour wind. So I think the feels like was like 28 or something like that.
And you're probably in like your crop top and buns, and that's it.
Yeah, it was terrible. I thought I was going to freeze to death. And at the start line, there was this announcement that was just playing over and over again that was like, white flag warning, like cold and windy conditions. And I was like, stop saying that. Like, why are you saying that now?
That was like, we were at a marathon in Florida, and one of the pros that was there that was helping with promoting the race kept saying, it's going to be a warm one out there. Take 2 or 3 minutes off your regular pace. And we're like, why would you tell people that right before a race? Just nobody needs to hear that they need to slow down.
Right? They're just trying to get in people's heads. Like, yeah. I think they did it on purpose to be mean or something.
I don't know. It was a big day for a lot of people. Hitting 233 at that race, obviously that's a number that gets you some attention in the running world. Like, what's happened since Houston as far as offers or people talking to you or just wanting to, other than like podcasters like us coming at you? Are there brands and people that are interested in talking to you at this point?
Not really, no. Mostly just people, like, a lot of people follow me on Instagram and, like, sent me messages like, oh, good job, that kind of thing, but that's about it.
All right, we need to get her an agent.
Do you have have any desire to, if a brand was to approach you, is it something you'd think about? Like, I'd love to be a professional runner and skip out on the rest of your school?
Fishes can do fine by
That would
themselves.
be great. If I didn't have to work, that'd be awesome. Who likes working?
Yeah, the run store. Here, putting shoes on sweaty people's feet.
I mean, I like my job, but if
Yeah.
I could just not have a job, that'd be way better.
I feel you for sure. Okay, I want to go back to Houston for a little bit because I know you are not into goals and not really into time and stuff, but you're working with a coach at this point. So is he putting in your head, hey, I think you can run X?
Or, like, are you starting to think about the Olympics?
I'm assuming you were going for an OTQ time.
Yeah, so going into the race, his goal that he came up with for me was just like to try to run a trials qualifier, so like sub 237. And even that, I was kind of thinking like, I don't know if that's gonna happen. We'll see. We'll see how this plays out. But yeah, he was more of a planner than me, and he would always try to, before races, like give me an actual race plan, you know, like you're supposed to have. And I'd be like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna see what happens. We're gonna figure it out.
That's hilarious.
So.
When you're doing these super high mileages, are you also doing a very hard taper? Or like what does the week right before Houston look like for you?
I didn't taper like too sharply. I do a 2-week taper, and 2 weeks out was still like 90 miles, and then the week of the race was like, I want to say it was like 60 something, but that included the race, so it was less than that actually.
Okay, so you clearly have a good day, but is there any point in this race where things start to hurt?
For me in the marathon, like the most stressful part, I guess, is usually like mile 10 or so. Like that's the part where I kind of, you start to get tired, but you still have a lot left to go. So I was kind of starting to panic around that part. Yeah, I don't know. I just hung with the pack. I was with the pack at that part, which normally I'm not so good at running with a pack, but it was so windy that I was like, you can't go off on your own. That's just not an option today. So I was in this pack, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to stay with these people till the end of the race, but I'm just going to hang on as long as I can. So that was kind of the toughest part for me. And then, yeah, that feeling just kind of went away after a while. I don't even know how.
That's pretty nice. Do you have any like mantras or tricks where if things start to hurt in the middle of a marathon that sort of get you out of them?
I wouldn't say I have a mantra, but I guess when it starts to get like rougher, I try to kind of just stop paying attention to anything and just like zone out and just think about like the rhythm of the running, and that's it. Just that. Just like that repetitive motion kind of thing.
Okay, so you finally see the clock. It says to probably 32 something. And what are you ecstatic? Are you shocked? Like, what are your immediate feelings? And then after you cross the finish line, like, who's the first person you tell?
I did not think that it was real at first. I was like, the clock has to be wrong. Like, what happened? How is this happening? How's the clock wrong right now? But so the way the finish at Houston is, you kind of turn a corner, and then the finish line's like right there, like 50 feet away. So you don't, like, it wasn't like a long build-up where I could see that I was going to run a 2:33. If it was, I probably would have tried a little harder at the very end, because 2:33.00 is like the dumbest time ever. Yeah, so I finished, and I was like, well, I guess I have to check the official results, because I don't know what's happening. And the official results also said 2:33, so I was like, okay, that's cool. And then the first person I called was my best friend that I've been running with since college, who loves running too, and we both just love running. Her name's Alicia, and I always call her right after races to talk about the race. She's always the first person I call.
Okay, so how are you feeling now? You've had some time away from the marathon. How was the recovery, and how are you feeling?
The recovery was pretty good. I recovered, I think, a little bit quicker than any of my past marathons. I'm already back to running. I did my first workout of my new training block this morning.
Is it a new training block for Boston?
No. I don't want to run the Boston Marathon. They rejected me. I'll never do that marathon.
F you, Boston.
So what?
Which I know is so petty.
Yeah.
But I don't ever want to do it now.
What?
My next race that I'm doing is going to be the Cherry Blossom 10 miler.
Oh, we'll be there.
Yeah, we will be there.
Oh, nice.
That'll be like nothing for you. You'll be like,
Yeah.
huh.
You'll
done.
probably go for another run afterwards, I'm assuming.
I'm actually really nervous about it because it's going to be so short for me. I don't know how it's going to go.
Well, you're used to the cold. It usually can be a pretty chilly morning. So the course is great. The vibe is awesome. You'll really dig it.
I'm assuming then that your coach picked this race for you, or did you pick this one out?
Yeah, this race was chosen for me. I don't really. I know that it's important to do some speed work sometimes, but I would never choose for myself a 10-mile race. I would just keep picking marathon after marathon until it was a disaster.
Do you have a next marathon on the horizon?
Yeah, I'm running Grandma's again this year in June. You kind of have to be... It's hard to do a fall marathon when you live in Florida because then, like, the peak of your training block is, like, the summer, and that's kind of difficult. So it's kind of better to plan around that. So I want to do that one before it gets super hot.
I mean, you're doing all of this mileage. Do you have any desire to go further than the marathon, like some 50Ks, 50-mile races, anything like that?
Absolutely not. So I've been asked this, and I feel like all the cool things in ultra running are like trail races and like in the mountains and stuff. And I cannot stand trails. Like, I don't want to run on trails ever. So I don't think that's for me.
I mean, the JFK 50 miler, the oldest one in the United States, it has somewhat of a trail portion to it, but it's mostly road. And when I say trail, it's more like that rail to trail kind of trail stuff. So if you ever want to kick it up.
I'm pretty sure like 15 miles of it is on the Appalachian Trail, though.
Yeah, but we'll check the course for you. I think you'll be fine.
That's a trail.
15,
like, I'm from
15
New
miles
Jersey.
for you is
like I don't do trails.
It'll be 10 minutes of your time.
I don't like the wilderness. I'm really scared of nature. That's the reason I don't like trails. If I see a snake, I'm going to freak out.
You're in school for marine biology and you're afraid of snakes?
I like to stay in the lab. I don't like to go outside.
Okay, so no sharks for you.
I don't even know how to swim. Like, I'm a terrible marine biologist, honestly.
Oh, boy.
This is hilarious.
This
I love it.
It's awesome. Just aquariums.
Yeah, just indoor fish.
Okay, so now that you work at a running store, tell us all about what shoes you're training in right now. What's your go-to daily trainer? What's your speed day shoe? I'm assuming race day is going to continue to be the Nike Alpha Fly or Vaporfly.
So my favorite daily trainer is the Pegasus. I have a lot of pairs of Pegasus. I wear the Endorphin Shift sometimes, but it's a little bit flat for me, so I don't wear it all the time. I have the whole Endorphin line. I like the Endorphin Speeds for some like lighter workouts and the Pros for longer workouts.
So we're pretty much Pegasus and then Vaporfly for race day. You are so easy. I love this. Like your coach has to just be like, go run these miles, do these things. Okay, I'll just do it. Yeah. Do you find that you're really laid back and easy as far as running goes?
I had to fight with my coach a lot to get him to give me 135 miles a week. And I complain a lot if there's any speed work on my schedule, so I'm probably kind of difficult to coach, really.
So you pushed for the high mileage more than he wanted to give you?
I did, yes. Yeah, when he first... So he was a guy who was also really into high mileage himself. So I think that was why he saw my Strava and was like, I can help you specifically, because I clearly wanted to do the same thing. But when he first started coaching me, he told me that I would never, ever, ever go above, like, 120, and even that would be in, like, the distant future. And I just complained so much that he gave me 135 for my next marathon.
Well, it seemed to work out just fine.
It did, see? So... I know what I'm talking about sometimes.
There you go.
Okay, so you officially have an Olympic trials qualifying time. I'm assuming, Grandma's, you're going to even want to take that down further. But for someone who is aiming for that 2:37, who's an amateur runner, do you have any advice to them, mental or training-wise, that you would say if they were going in for a race shooting for that 2:37?
That you have to just trust your training and trust that the taper is going to make a big difference, and don't be afraid of like any paces or how you feel in the race, because everything is different on race day.
All right, we have some end of podcast questions that we ask everyone.
We never asked her what her favorite Will Ferrell movie was.
Oh yeah. Are you a Will Ferrell fan? That's a no.
I don't have a good answer to that question. I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay. When you are out running by yourself, headphones or no headphones?
No headphones ever.
What is your celebratory post-race meal or beverage, or both?
Well, it's really hard to eat after a race. So I don't really have a post-race meal. After Houston, I had a lot of gin and tonics, but that might not
Yes.
be the best.
I love it. That's good. Okay, and if you weren't studying to become a marine biologist, what would you be doing? Like, what is your dream job?
I mean, I really like studying to be a marine biologist. I'd say that's my dream job, unless the option is have no job and just run.
So a professional runner,
Professional
potentially.
runner,
Let's say that.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was cool to get to learn a little bit more about your insane journey from a 3:29 to a 2:33 marathon. We will see you at the Cherry Blossom 10 miler, and then we'll be rooting for you at Grandma's. I mean, with those times, could you potentially win Grandma's?
I don't know. That seems unlikely. I feel like there's got to be faster people there for sure.
All right. Well, you
Well,
never know.
I hope you do win it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's refreshing to see somebody who's achieving what you're achieving that's doing it in a way that is so relaxed. Like we get all like uptight and like regimented when I got to hit these workouts, I got to hit these paces, I got to do this, I got to do that, and it seems like you have more of a refreshing approach to it, which is more relaxed and just growing into it and seeing what you can do, which is I think if you could bottle that, I'd take some.
I just don't know what's going on. It's hard to take things too seriously when you have no idea what's going on ever.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Meg, do you know when this one will air?
In a couple weeks. Yep.
Cool. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah. Good luck on your journey. I do think you're hitting those times. You keep doing that. Somebody should be reaching out to you to at least put sneakers on your feet and a singlet on your back. So let's hope we see that happen.